Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Enjoy. Sasuke Shinden, Book of Sunrise. Chapter 3 Part 3. Lead it to me, Yamato said, stiffening up when Sasuke entrusted him with the freed shinobi. I'm no stranger to this either, after all. In these words, uttered so nonchalantly, Sasuke felt like he had caught a glimpse of the other man's strange constitution and checkered destiny. When you make these kinds of connections, you learn about the other person, and the world inside you gets just a little bit bigger. He keenly felt this link, and Naruto naturally came to mind. Naruto had grown up as a ninja, supported by all kinds of people. Just how big exactly was his world? What would happen in the future Naruto was aiming for? Sasuke thought of himself. About exactly what he wanted to see happen there. But it was hard to look into the future with these eyes that had stared only into the darkness for so long. And as he traveled the world like this, those eyes only picked up on the darkness in people. But he couldn't just stand still, either. Sasuke left Orochimaru and headed to the Forgotten Island by himself. He himself honestly didn't know for whose sake, or what purpose. He just had the feeling deep in his heart that he had to resolve this matter. He checked Oyashiro's map and strained his eyes. Is that it? A small island came into view in the middle of the ocean. There was a mountain in the center of it, surrounded by forest. Rotting houses lined the coast. There was no sign of human life. But Sasuke's eyes caught it. A boat anchored at the island's port. Big enough for 100 people, probably. He looked at the ship with his Sharingan and discovered the mark of Kirigakure carved into it. So that's the missing ship. He looked at the island once again with the Sharingan. There. Beyond the rotting village, in the woods, there was a human aura. Needing his chakra, Sasuke got out of the boat and stood on the waves. The aura disappeared, and he quietly approached the island. First, the Kirigakure ship. He kicked at the waves and leapt onto the ship's deck. There was no sign of any struggle. Not a drop of blood had been spilled there. He jumped down from the ship and landed on the port. There were several other boats tied up there. But unlike the Kirigakure ship, they were basically all small boats. The Kirigakure ship stands out. Did they anchor it here and move around in the smaller boats? He went through the port and walked around the desolate village. Perhaps the houses had been hit by a storm, all the roofs had been blown off, and the windows and doors had also been destroyed. He passed through the village and was faced with the woods spreading out before him. The forest was hot and humid, making his skin sticky. The trees were twisted, and enormous flowers grew in abundance. The place was difficult to move through. But he felt the presence of another person up ahead. He brushed aside the vines and stared ahead intently. He saw someone lying in his path of progress in the center of the woods. And not just one person, there were several. Right beside them were two people apparently keeping watch. His eyes were already Sharingan. Sasuke took a short breath and approached them, preparing those eyes. Who's there? One of the guards looked around to try and spot Sasuke. But this was actually good for Sasuke. He caught his opponent in a genjutsu with the Sharingan. The man fell easily, and Sasuke leapt over his body to close the distance to the other man, who was weaving signs. Gah! The man brandished a fist. Sasuke couldn't let it touch him. He intuited this instantly, stepped on a root popping out of the ground, and leapt in the exact opposite direction from the one he had been proceeding in. The man's fist cut through the air in vain and punched the ground. Boom! A huge explosion echoed through the woods, and the fist gouged out a hole in the ground. The technique resembled the explosive-style Deidara of Akatsuki had used when they fought in the past. In which case, Sasuke pulled out a kunai, infused it with chakra, and flung it at his opponent. NGH. Lighting style? The kunai plunged into the man's arm, and the chakra contained in his fist disappeared like it was fleeing. The man tried to pull the blade out, but before he could, Sasuke closed in on him and launched a roundhouse kick at his head. HNRK. The man bounced back against the earth. Sasuke looked down on him and caught him with the Sharingan. And with that, both of the guards were unable to move. Sasuke ran over to the ninja lying on the ground, clad in the uniforms of Kiri and Kumo. They were breathing, but they were sleeping like the dead, not so much as twitching. According to Kakashi's letter, the people who attacked Konoha had foreign chakra flowing through their bodies. Sasuke used his Sharingan to check inside these ninja. None, HM. He couldn't seem to find any of the foreign chakra Kakashi wrote about. Sasuke tried a counter genjutsu on the Kirigakure ninja before him. The Kirigakure ninja regained consciousness. Where, can you do a counter genjutsu? Sasuke asked. The man, dazed, pressed a hand to his forehead. Counter genjutsu? You were captured and placed in a genjutsu. Oh. Right. I was on watch on deck, and then this small boat approached us, the man said, seemingly remembering as he spoke. Tell me later. Our priority right now is to get away from here, Sasuke said. The man looked at his surroundings. He caught sight of his comrades lying next to him and finally seemed to understand the situation. See counter genjutsu, right? I can do that. He moved to undo the genjutsu cast on his comrades. The Kiri ninja suddenly cried out as a small chakra sword pierced his body, sending blood scattering. Ow! He pressed a hand to the left side of his chest and squatted down like he was going to fall on top of his comrades. Someone had thrown the blade at him from behind. Sasuke felt a gentle breeze from that chakra sword. He had encountered this before. I never thought I'd see you again in a place like this. A man emerged from the woods. He had a relaxed demeanor and a familiar voice. It can't have actually been you. Standing before Sasuke was the ninja he had met in the village of Takino, Nowaki. And behind him, with an indecipherable expression on her face, was Chino. What do you mean, it can't have actually been you? Nowaki asked. You're the former leader of Bright Lightning, and now the one making the ninja under genjutsu attack shinobi villages, Fushin, Sasuke said. Nowaki pulled another chakra sword out of his bag, putting Sasuke immediately on guard, but he simply cut his own wrist with the tip of the sword. Ignoring the blood spilling out, he cut the opposite wrist as well. Sasuke gasped. Nowaki began to grow lumpy and transform. Once muscular, his body now became slender, and he shrank slightly as well, becoming a slender youth about the same height as Sasuke. Sasuke stared at the blood that had spilled out. He sensed a strange chakra in that blood. Perhaps the young man had released a special chakra into his blood and transformed his body. So, had he applied this technique to create human beings who exploded when they received an external injury? I thought this might turn into a hassle when we met you in Takino. Even though I managed to kill Kiryu, who had a real possibility of being linked with me. Nowaki cracked his neck. You're going to spill everything, right here, right now. Am I, though? Sasuke knew the moment he saw the look on Nowaki's face that the other man was not planning to play nice and tell him what he wanted to know. So Sasuke would have to try to catch him with the Sharingan. Meanwhile, Nowaki brought his hands together and wove signs. A wind danced up around him, and his body was hidden by tree leaves and dirt and dust. Wind style? No. Nowaki also had a Keka Ginkai. And the wind grew steadily stronger, with no sign of stopping. It appeared to be surpassing the realm of wind style. Nowaki was still weaving signs in the center of it. The wind began to expand outward and grow stronger. And then, finished with his signs, Nowaki shouted, Typhoon style. Gale destruction. NGH. The wind roared. The bodies of the kidnapped ninja were swept up by it, the trees around them bent, and Sasuke's own body threatened to rise up. It really was a typhoon. Now, then, Nowaki spread out his jacket. Tucked away in the center of it was a chakra sword about the size of a hand. Milwaukee took this, concentrated chakra in it, and then casually tossed it. The chakra sword rode the wind to attack Sasuke. TCH. Sasuke clicked his tongue and jumped. When he did, he was caught by the wind and carried upward. It wasn't just the chakra sword in the wind, there were felled trees as well. And these large trees also became weapons attacking Sasuke. But, using them as footholds, he somehow managed to land on the ground again while dodging the flying chakra sword. But the wind was too strong, he couldn't get close to Milwaukee. The gale was gradually becoming large enough to assault the entire island. Milwaukee was a level of magnitude stronger than Dark Thunder's Kiryu or Futsu from the Colosseum. Now that he was thinking about it, the leader of Bright Lightning was the one who helped his comrades escape from Kirigakura's elite. Milwaukee wove even more complicated signs, and then released them. The final blow. Tornado destruction. The rotating winds began to spin in the other direction. Moving slowly at first as if to build up a vast amount of energy, the wind gradually began to accelerate. The wind roared eerily and transformed into an enormous blade that shot at Sasuke. The blade mowed down the massive trees of the forest, a scythe cutting down rice. Susanoo. His Mangekyo Sharingan was activated, and an enormous winged armored warrior appeared to shield Sasuke. HNGH. Sasuke caught the massive blade with Susanoo's sword. The squeal of the wind blade and the sword pushing against each other rang out, and sweat popped up on the foreheads of the fighters. Yeah. Sasuke concentrated his power in his eyes. Susanoo heaved one foot forward and started to push against the wind blade, leaning his weight into it. NGH, Milwaukee bit his lip and pulled apart the hands weaving signs. When he did, the blade turned back into wind and disappeared, but Milwaukee immediately rewove the signs. I won't let you in this. The wind's rotation returned, and a fierce, turbulent column of air once again enveloped the area, pushing at Susanoo. He staggered a few steps. Sasuke wasn't going to get anywhere until he defeated Milwaukee himself. He turned his eyes on the place where he assumed Milwaukee was. Then he realized that his opponent had basically not moved at all from before. The center of the winds, the eye of the typhoon. That was where he had to aim. Careful to keep Milwaukee from noticing, Sasuke slipped out from inside Susanoo. He stepped away, leaving Susanoo to keep fighting, bit hard into his thumb, and then, as blood oozed out, he placed his hand on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. Appearing with a poof was the enormous snake, Aoda. Sasuke's loyal snake. Lord Sasuke, what is your request? Stretch up. Understood. As instructed, the giant snake threw his head up toward the heavens. His massive body slipped through Naoki's wind and brought Sasuke up beneath a blue sky. Nice work. From there, Sasuke leapt up higher. The center of the wind. He charged in and cloaked his hand in lightning. Chidori. Noticing the line of Chidori, Milwaukee looked up in surprise and tried to launch his wind towards Sasuke, but it was too late. Yeah. Shining with the brilliance of lightning, Sasuke used the force of his descent to slam into Milwaukee. Nah. An electric shock jolted Milwaukee's body, and he was knocked to the ground. The signs he had woven were released, and the roaring wind immediately disappeared. All that was left then was blue sky. Ah! Sasuke panted from the effects of using his visual powers. However, he had to catch the ringleader, Milwaukee, and get information from him. Damn it. Milwaukee tried to stand up to escape from Sasuke's eyes, but, unable to muster the strength, he fell back down. Sasuke stood beside him and caught his eyes with the Sharingan. In an instant, he saw a vast trove of information. His life flowed past like a revolving lantern. Milwaukee was always alone. The great storm that visited the island was blamed on him, and he was sold to a wealthy man interested in his powers. To make him obedient, the man tortured him, sapping the will to fight back. He was forced into unwanted battles and made to fight for his life simply for the entertainment of his master. Milwaukee's power was great, and people kept their distance from him, fearing that power. He was isolated and made hard-hearted by those around him. He had never once lost. That alone was his secret pride. And then he had been knocked on his back, limbs split in the center of that coliseum. Did I lose? The wealthy man who was his master turned toward the dumbfounded Milwaukee and hurled abuse at him. However, none of this entered Milwaukee's ears. That's right. You lost. A voice came down at him. A hand appeared before his eyes, reaching out toward him. His eyes slowly moved from the palm of that hand up to the face. And standing there it was red. His field of view abruptly turned red. He was simply being sucked into a world of red. Jinjutsu? Sasuke concentrated his power in his eyes and forced the red back. It really is disagreeable, the Uchiha Sharingan. He pulled himself out of Milwaukee's mind and returned to the real world. Chino was there carrying Milwaukee on her shoulders. Her eyes were dyed red. And not just the pupils. Her entire eyeball was red. It was unlike the Sharingan, and he'd never seen before. Those eyes, Sasuke said. The look on Chino's face became grim. The violence of forgetting. It said, though, that it was the Uchiha clan who drove our Chinoite clan to the brink. What? Chino's eyes locked onto Sasuke. The ground beneath his feet turned into a red sea, and his body began to sink. NGH. Sassy. She looked down at him from above the red waves of the sea. The ringleader's not Milwaukee. It's me. I turned the ninja into human bombs and sent them to the villages. Why would you do that? Sasuke asked. Chino slowly cocked her head to one side. Sassy, you barely listen to anything a person says, and you also don't answer any questions. But now, you're feeling chatty, huh? She snorted with laughter and closed her eyes. A drop of blood flowed out of one. The drop fell into the red ocean. Stimulated by Chino's tear, the sea suddenly produced an enormous wave, which came crashing down on Sasuke. He was pulled into the ocean, and churned and mixed with it until he had no idea which way was up. He couldn't breathe. Damn it! He concentrated his power in his eyes once more. Ah! Finally breaking free of the Jinjutsu, he took a deep breath. As he filled his lungs with oxygen, he lifted his face, but Chino was already gone. End of Chapter 3. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.